Good evening. My name is Sophia Cao, the president of the League of Women Voters, Southwest Santa Clara Valley, which covers the cities of Los Gatos, Saratoga, Monte Sereno, Campbell, and a small segment of West San Jose. Welcome to this candidate forum for the California State Assembly District 28. It's a newly formed district. This webinar is part of a series of candidate forums hosted by legal leagues in Santa Clara County. There are 4 candidates running for this office. Before we start, I would like to introduce and thank our voter service team who organized this event. We have Tom Pickrocks is our timer, Amy Wu is our Zoom and IT host, and Eleanor Yek, our moderator of the forum. So now I will turn this meeting over to our moderator for tonight's forum, Eleanor.
Thank you, Sophia, and welcome everyone. Next slide, please. The League of Women Voters is a grassroots organization. If you join the League at the local level, you automatically become a member at the Bay Area, state, and national levels. There are 5 leagues in Santa Clara County: Cupertino, Sunnyvale, Los Altos, Mountain View, Palo Alto, San Jose, Santa Clara, and the Southwest Santa Clara Valley. Our league is hosting this event tonight. The district that we're focused on is Assembly District 28, which is a newly configured district. And I see an edit is needed on this slide because Gilroy is not a part of this newly formed District 28. But it does include Los Gatos, Monte Sereno, Morgan Hill, Santa Cruz Mountain Community Areas, Cambrian Park, and San Jose. It's quite an interesting district. Let's move on to the next slide. The League of Women Voters has been empowering voters and defending democracy for over 100 years. We have 2 distinct roles: voter service, public education, which is what we're doing tonight, and action and advocacy. 2 important facts about the League is that we are a nonpartisan political organization for women and men, encouraging informed and active participation in government. And most importantly, the League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. Next slide, please. Again, our voter service or education, we do candidate forums as we're presenting tonight. We do pros and cons on ballot measures, which for those of you who are interested, if you remain online after the candidate forum, we will be doing a short pros and cons on Measure A, which is on the Santa Clara County ballot. We do registration events for both adults and for students. And we recommend to all voters that they look at votersedge.org, one-stop shopping. And I'll say a little bit more about that as we go on. But before we begin our actual candidate forum, I do want to remember all who are in attendance. June 7th is coming up quickly. You should be getting your ballots this week if you have not already received them. They started being sent out on May 9th. You can return your mail-in ballot. You can return it by the US Post Office. You can drop it off in a secure drop box, or you can go to a vote center, which is open between May 28th and June 7th. You can always go to the Santa Clara County, back to that other slide, please. You can always go to the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters to find out information about your ballot. And you can actually, here is a website, Where's My Ballot? Santa Clara, the Registrar of Voters that can check for you. Next slide. Again, there are 3 ways that you can return your ballot: by mail, by Dropbox, and by a vote center. Next slide, please. The primary election, what is on your ballot? On your primary election ballot, Santa Clara County voters will find candidates for state and federal offices, 3 county-wide offices, which we have already done candidate forums on: sheriff, assessor, and district attorney. a county-wide ballot measure, Measure A, and perhaps some local measures. Now you'll notice an asterisk here after state and federal offices, and what does that refer to? The top 2 candidates, and our forum tonight is one that falls into this category. Those who win the most votes in each state or constitutional office, governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, members of the state legislature, members of the US Congress, those who get the top 2 votes will advance on to the general election in November. Even if they're both from the same party, even if one candidate were to get more than 50% of the vote. Now, these other offices that are on your ballot, again, sheriff, assessor, and district attorney, they don't fall into that category. They are treated slightly different. If one of the candidates in those races gets 50% of the vote plus 1, they will have won the race and it will not show up on your November ballot. But if none of them do, the top 2 from those 3 will also appear on your November ballot. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. We are going to be hosting a candidate forum tonight for the state assembly. This is a newly reconfigured district. What does the state assembly do? What are their responsibilities? They pass bills on public policy that set levels for state spending. They raise and lower taxes, and they can vote to uphold or override gubernatorial vetoes. So those are the responsibilities of the state assembly. Next slide, please. And here I have for you not the best map in the world, but it is a map of the newly reconfigured Assembly District 28. It is quite comprehensive in the sense that, to my mind, it takes in many different communities, some urban, some rural. You see over here, we have Morgan Hill, Cambrian Park is over here, Los Gatos, Monte Sereno. We have the Santa Cruz Mountains over here and what I consider the mountainous communities. So it's a wide ranging geographic area. So that introduces our beginning of our forum. And now I would like to begin the actual forum, and I am pleased to welcome and introduce the 4 candidates who are running for California Assembly District 28. Candidates, when I mention your name, would you please put on your video and your audio so that our audience can see you? And I will be introducing the candidates in alphabetical order. So we will begin with Liz Lawler. Hi, Liz, thank you.
Hello.
Next, we'll introduce Gail Pellerin. Hi,
Hello.
Gail. Thank you. Next, Rob Rennie. Hi, Rob. Thank you. And our 4th candidate, Joe Thompson. Hi, Joe. Thank you. The candidates will be making their opening statements tonight in reverse alphabetical order. After the opening statements, the candidates will respond in a randomized order to all the other questions that are posed. And candidates, we so appreciate your willingness to participate in this forum tonight. Before we go any further, for our audience members primarily, I would like to highlight for you some of the ground rules that the League operates under when we are hosting candidate forums. The candidates have agreed to these ground rules. The League supports the accepted norms of civil discourse. If we could move our slide a little bit further. And in that light, the candidates have agreed to follow these norms that were outlined in a document. For example, the candidates have agreed not to interrupt each other and to follow the allotted response times. And candidates, I do need to remind you, you don't need to use all of the time that's allotted, but we do ask you not to go beyond the time that is allotted. And to help us stay with that, I'd like to introduce our timer for tonight's forum, our League member, Tom Pickrow. There he is. He's the cop on duty tonight with his sheriff's hat. And he will be giving each candidate reminders as they answer questions about the time remaining and when the time has elapsed. So Tom, would you demonstrate, please, for the candidates what it will look like? Tom, did we lose you?
No.
Okay.
You didn't lose. Why is this not? Here we go.
There you go. So for example, go ahead, Tom.
So when the candidates start speaking, the timer show here will go lit up. When the candidate comes to within 30 seconds of completing their answer, we go to 30. This will stay on until we reach 15 seconds. And then at the end of the time, we'll show the stop. And then we'll show that the timer is off when everything is finished.
Good. And I would ask you at that point to just finish your sentence, your complete thought, and to stop as soon as you can. Thank you, Tom. The forum is scheduled to last approximately an hour from the time that we start. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to introduce himself or herself by specifically answering this question in their opening statement. What qualifies you to be the assembly person for District 28? After these opening statements, candidates will have 60 seconds to answer subsequent questions, which have been submitted through the registration process, obtained from social media sites, and/or developed by league members. The moderator will announce and enforce the time limits for each question. And lastly, the forum will close with the candidates speaking in a modified reverse order, because I tried to mix up who were 2 and 3. And you will be responding to this question as your closing statement. What question do you wish you had been asked tonight? Why? And how would you have responded? And you will have 90 seconds for that closing statement. And now, let's begin with each candidate's opening statement responding to this question again. What specifically qualifies you to be the assembly person for District 28? You will have 90 seconds, and we will begin our answers from candidate Joe Thompson.
Hello, thank you so much for hosting this forum. My name is Joe Thompson. I use they, them pronouns. I'm 19 years old and a UC Santa Cruz student. Currently today, actually, we just had the first 2 Starbuckses throughout all of California vote to unionize. So it's been a great day for me and the movement that I am helping lead. I'm mostly known in the community as a Starbucks organizer. Back in January, we first filed to unionize with Starbucks Workers United. And today we officially held our vote count, and we're the first 2 stores in all of California. It's my pleasure to not only, recognize that we need change, and, now running for state assembly, I can't, agree more that we need to continue fighting for everything from workers' rights to protecting abortion and, making sure that everything that we continue fighting for is benefiting everyone. And, to answer the question about what qualifies me for this office, I'm an organizer. Obviously, that's what I do best. It's what I'm known for. And I think that's what we need to get in the state legislature. Someone who is willing to take risks, someone who's willing to fight and organize on behalf of working class families. I'm only, again, 19 years old, and I, grew up pretty poor. I still work at Starbucks, so I don't make a whole lot of money anyway. I'm one of the only candidates who is, not self or corporate funded. And when it comes down to it, I believe, we need a true democracy, and the voters of this district need to decide, if they want to vote for, a worker like me, or, vote for the same politicians over and over again. And I'm hoping that, we vote for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate to speak will be Rob Rennie.
Hello, I'm Rob Rennie, obviously. I'm an engineer of 25 years, 5 of that in the solar industry. I'm currently mayor of Los Gatos. I've been on the Los Gatos Council for 8 years. I'd like to emphasize my breadth of experience. In my years in elective office, I've served on many regional boards relating to transportation, housing and community development, climate, air quality, emergency preparedness and management, ag and open space preservation, and efficient delivery of government services. Small businesses has been a focus in Los Gatos. I've utilized experience as a council member, mayor, and small business owner to champion effective policy. Many small businesses in Los Gatos have recovered faster after the pandemic because we made changes in our ordinances and requirements to allow businesses to innovate their business model while staying open during the pandemic. We've also removed unnecessary regulations and streamlined our process to making doing business in Los Gatos easier. I believe that we need to do more to continue to help businesses and residents by increasing efficiency. One of my biggest achievements in elected office was founding of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. A small group of us wanted to get together and take a big bite out of the climate problem. We formed SVCE and have saved 34% of greenhouse gases since we were formed. I was the chair when we started delivering our carbon-free electricity. And with that, I'm not going to start the next paragraph.
Thank you, Rob. Our next candidate will be Gail Pellerin.
Hi, I'm Gail Pellerin. I started my career in the California State Assembly. I spent more than 27 years as the chief elections official and was elected 4 times as the Santa Cruz County Clerk. I'm now ready to go back to Sacramento to do the important work of helping to solve the enormous challenges faced by our new Assembly District 28. After 35 years in public service at both local and state levels, I'm ready to make a bigger impact driven by my passion for connection with the community and my desire to shape policy around mental health, affordable housing, healthcare, education, climate change, and public safety. I'm running for state assembly because I'm dedicated to creating a more sustainable, equitable, and healthier community and improving government access, especially for those who are most in need of vital services. I am dedicated, tenacious, and good at creative problem solving. I have deep ties to both counties in this district. My first job when I got married was for Touche Manufacturing, which was the largest Hispanic-owned business in San Jose at the time. My husband practiced law in Santa Clara County for more than 30 years, and he passed away in 2018. I'm honored to be endorsed by U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, Congress members Anna Eshoo and Jimmy Panetta, Senator John Laird, Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon, and other current and former electeds in both counties. I'm also endorsed by teachers, nurses, labor, Planned Parenthood, and BAMAC. And thank you all for being here. I commend you on your civic engagement and look forward to answering your questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And our 4th candidate, Liz Lawler.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure being here with you tonight. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My name is Liz Lawler, and I am born and raised in California, and I graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in political science. Since college, I've worked in advertising, raised 3 children. I have 2 grandchildren. I've been a room mom, a den mom, a team mom, a realtor, a philanthropist, and most recently, a Better Streets commissioner, mayor, and council member. I am qualified because all of these experiences combined have given me the opportunity to develop the diplomatic skills, the policy knowledge, and a desire to have a positive impact on people's lives. I entered politics because of potholes. Our street was riddled with potholes, and after lobbying our city to repair them, I was appointed to the newly formed Better Streets Commission, where I worked to create an annual pavement program to bring our entire roads infrastructure up to good condition, resulting in taxpayer savings on future maintenance. As a council member and mayor, I have worked to improve transparency, eliminate wasteful spending, engage residents, and install best practices to city services. I am running for state assembly to provide you, the voters, a choice. We have had one-party rule in our state for decades, and we are now living the consequences of a policy first, figure it out later mentality. Rising crime, a homelessness crisis, failing schools, EDD fraud, the list goes on. It is time we restore balance, accountability, and cooperation to Sacramento by electing common sense, pragmatic leaders like myself who hold themselves and the government accountable and are truly dedicated to representing our residents. I want to be that leader for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to questions submitted again through the registration process or developed by League members. The candidates will have 60 seconds to respond to each question. The candidates will respond to these questions in a randomized order so that everyone has the opportunity to go first, last, or in the middle. And we will begin our first question with Liz Lawler. And that question is, as you saw on the map that we displayed, District 28 covers a vast geographic area. How will you try to understand the needs of all these various communities, geographic communities, and address these potentially diverse interests? Liz?
Well, thank you very much. That's a great question. I appreciate and value the uniqueness of each of our communities. I love everything our district has to offer, from the beaches, the mountains, and our open spaces, and our charming towns. Our district is truly a microcosm of California. I will dedicate myself to spending time in each of our communities and being accessible to our residents to be the best representative I can be to all of you. We have a lot of unifying themes in our district. We are all Californians. We want to feel safe in our communities. We want to educate our children, and we want to afford our groceries. We share the same challenges with respect to homelessness, wildfire, drought, high taxes, high cost of living, and we want to see our taxpayer dollars work. I will dedicate myself to listening to what matters to you, because that's what's the most important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next candidate, Joe Thompson.
When it comes to this district, it's obviously very vast and wide, but I think when it comes down to it, all of our interests align through, a working class voice. And this district is extremely working class. It's over 30% Hispanic as well. And not only do I plan to not only uplift those voices, but uplifting everyone in that fight. It doesn't matter whether you're, conservative, a Democrat, liberal, anything. We want to bring people together in this. And, I'm only 19 years old. And one of our missions right now is really engaging young people and making sure we're expanding the Democratic list for 2024. And the way to do that is going to these communities and door knocking, reaching out to them directly. So we're not only reaching out to students, but we're hitting every community in this district. We're making sure that we're door knocking not only on universities, but we're going down into low-income neighborhoods, engaging everyone in democracy, because democracy is more powerful when we all work together. And it's not only going to help us down the line, but it's going to build a movement of people who want to see their elected officials not only held accountable, but held to a higher standard. And that's what I plan to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Rob Rennie.
Oops, I just muted myself. I wasn't mute. So the first thing I'd say is I was actually running for county supervisor all of last year before Los Gatos got redistricted out of the open seat. And I spent a year trying to understand the various parts of Supervisor District 1, which has a large overlap with this assembly district. So I feel like I've already got some head start on it. I would, as an assembly member, I would sit down and want to talk to all the council members, all the community leaders, nonprofit leaders. I will attend community events to again talk to community people. During campaigning, I also do a lot of knocking on doors. During both of my runs for Los Gatos Council, I knocked on over 4,000 doors, even though the second time was going to be an easy win as mayor and incumbent. I still wanted to talk to the people. I wish we had more time to do it in this race. We all started, pretty much in March, and that doesn't get us enough time to cover that many doors, but I will be doing that also.
Thank you very much. And our fourth candidate, Gail Pellerin.
Hi. So yeah, I'm really excited about this district. It's, I think that there are many differences, but we have a lot of similarities as well. People are concerned about housing and healthcare and mental health care and transportation and our environment. So I think the best way to serve a diverse group is to make sure you're accessible and responsive to their needs. I will have a district office in each county and hire staff that reflect the diversity of the district. It's also important to have services in various languages spoken by people in the district. And I make it a priority right now to get out and about, talking to different people, knocking on doors, getting to know the various issues in and around the district. As county clerk, I represented various constituencies with diverse needs, and I was able to earn their trust by being a good listener, making sure I was responsive to their requests, and providing an open and transparent office where everyone was treated with respect and dignity. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I did mean to mention to the candidates also that if anyone needs me to repeat a question as we go along, feel free to ask me to do so. Our next question is going to begin with you, Gail. You'll be first this time. How do you plan on helping immigrant communities feel safe and accepted?
So I've had a lot of work with this. As county clerk, I was also a passport acceptance agent. And when the immigrant community was concerned about being deported and there's children that were born in the US were going to not have a way to get around, we made sure we did a passport workshop for them so they can get their children the passports they needed so they could stay in the US and be able to travel to see their parents if they were deported. So I think it's so important that we provide services, that we are there to serve this community. It's and have a path to citizenship for people as well. And so I guess I'll just leave it with that.
Thank you. And our next candidate will be Liz Lawler.
All right, thank you. Well, we are a nation of immigrants, and it's very important that our immigrant community feel welcome and safe. I would really like to focus primarily on streamlining the process to become a citizen. It is incredibly expensive. It is incredibly burdensome. It takes years for our immigrants to earn the money just to afford a lawyer to start the process. I think we really need to streamline this path to citizenship. I think we can do it in many ways. I think we can take newly minted lawyers, for example, and we can forgive them their student loan in exchange for working pro bono to help immigrants getting their citizenship. I've done some work with DACA recipients, and it's absolutely a shame that it takes so long and that they can't use family members to help them get citizenship. So I would like to support helping these folks actually be true participants in our great society. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate, Joe Thompson.
Can you repeat the question as well?
Yes. How do you plan on helping immigrant communities feel safe and accepted?
Okay, great. So yeah, so one of the things that I'm specifically advocating for is expanding AB 1215. It's a law that bans biometric surveillance technology. Currently in California, there's this biometric technology called stingrays. Stingrays are used by ICE and other agencies in California to spy on immigrants. I fully support banning the stingray cell site emulators that are tracking immigrant activity. Although I fully agree with Liz Lawler in the fact that we need to streamline the immigrant citizenship process, that's more on the federal level. We as a state assembly can't do that. That's why specifically I would like to, expand AB 1215, actually ban and stop the illegal spying of immigrant communities with these stingray technologies. Additionally, I am, come from an immigrant background. My great grandmother was an illegal immigrant. And I've been working within the community in this time. And, I'm one of the only candidates whose website is translatable. So not only do we need to continue to be doing outreach to these communities, but explaining the fact that, this is an immigrant country and, our family and roots come here, and we need to continue fighting for that.
Thank you. And Rob Rennie will be next.
Thank you. All good ideas. In Los Gatos, we've had some challenge in our areas around us. We've had some challenge with anti-Asian hate kinds of problems, LGBTQ hate kinds of problems. We've done rallies in Los Gatos, and we've painted a rainbow stripe near the high school to make the Pride community feel welcome. So we've already been doing some things to help, these types of communities feel more welcome. There was a lot of good ideas that my colleagues just mentioned. I would add into that, making sure that our police and our government workers match the diversity so people feel at home. I would want to do more kinds of job training for these immigrants, make sure that we want them to be successful, get them the services, the healthcare services they need, and education especially. Make sure that they're getting education in their languages so that they're not starting behind. And then, of course, help them learn English, but make sure that they're up to speed education-wise.
Thank you. Our next question is going to begin with Rob Rennie. And the question is, if you had to, what would you identify as the top 2 issues you believe need to be addressed in District 28? And you would focus on these in your first year if you were to be elected. And Rob?
I'd say first, this district has a lot of mountains in it. So the fire protection, fire prevention, fire safety problems, getting more money for forest management, vegetation management would all be high. The other place I would go top is homelessness. It's a complex problem with many pieces. As fast as we're housing people, more people are becoming homeless. So I would focus on things like rapid rehousing, very basic houses so that people can get back on their feet, start rebuilding their lives. I know it's a short time to answer this. I'd focus on mental health programs and drug abuse programs to, again, help these people to be able to function in society. I'll stop.
Thank you, Rob. Our next candidate will be Gail Pellerin.
So my top two issues would be mental health and housing. My family's been profoundly impacted by mental health, and certainly after the last 2 years we've all had our own experiences with mental health and well-being. We have the launch of 988 happening July 16th, and I want to be an advocate for mental health services and full funding for the 988 emergency hotline. And then, of course, mental health does intersect with the homeless issue. And we do have a severity. We have a crisis right now with people who are unhoused. We need to provide housing for them. And then we need to provide the services they need as far as mental health, addiction. Some are going through trauma, victims of domestic violence. And then working on creating paths to home ownership through affordable housing. I think the state needs to make an investment there as well. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate is Liz Lawler.
All right, thank you. Yes, the top two issues that I feel need to be addressed in District 28, number one is public safety. I believe we should be prioritizing law-abiding residents. Unfortunately, recent reforms have put the lives and livelihoods of many law-abiding residents at risk. I also want to make sure that our law enforcement have the tools they need to effectively and thoughtfully enforce the law in their areas. I also believe that the homelessness problem, like everyone here, it's tragic. We absolutely need to do something about this, and we need to address the root causes, mental illness and addiction. And I would support investing in and expanding our mental health care facilities, addiction programs, particularly for our youth. We need to really focus on adolescent and preventative care. We also need to provide temporary conservatorships for families so that they are empowered to care for their loved ones who are experiencing mental illness and addiction and homelessness because of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And our fourth candidate tonight on this question, Joe Thompson.
So the biggest issues I see in this district that need to be addressed and what I would specifically work for is affordable housing and education. And on affordable housing, I've been an advocate for a few months now, working on multiple affordable housing projects in Santa Cruz, including the 831 Water Street project, the Library Mixed Use project, 130 Center Street, and fighting against the criminalization of homelessness. And there's been multiple ordinances passed in Santa Cruz, and I've been actively fighting against the criminalization that's happening. It's not good policy to criminalize homelessness. One of the things that I would bring forward on the state assembly is actually making it illegal for cities and localities to further criminalize the homeless population. I don't think it's benefiting anyone. I only think it's draining our resources and making sure that we have adequate staffing for that. Then on education, I think it's very important. As a college student, we're being crushed by student debt. We're having 9% of UC Santa Cruz students are homeless. These issues intersect very often because of the issues this district is facing. And with the district, having UC Santa Cruz in it, Cabrillo College, and being very close to San Jose State University, I believe we need to focus on those issues.
Thank you. Our next question is going to be another question on housing, and it follows up on some of the things that you may have mentioned, but if you could provide a little bit more detail, and we'll be beginning, the first respondent will be Joe this time. And so the question is, how do you think the housing crisis can be solved? Do you think legislation like SB 9, 10, 35, et cetera, provide the best way to move forward? Joe?
So I do support SB 9 and 10. I think that's the very start of this project. And, we need to, specifically looking at affordable housing, we need to focus on more deed-restricted affordable housing projects and really building up the housing supply as well. I'm the only candidate who has worked specifically on multiple housing projects in Santa Cruz, like the ones I just mentioned. But additionally, I'm supporting SB 886, which is the Student Housing Crisis Act. This act would allow for universities and other college institutions to be exempt from CEQA, which would allow the building of additional affordable housing. Of course, 9% of UC Santa Cruz students are homeless, and it's devastating to think that almost 1 out of 10 of my fellow college students is homeless in this community. And not only do we need to be focused on those issues, but another campaign I've been supporting is the empty home tax. It's essentially a wealth tax on the city of Santa Cruz that would be taxing vacation homes, investment properties, and other vacant lots to create a fund for affordable housing that can be used to not only help the residents, but also be used to put forward more policies that benefit the homeless population as well.
Thank you. Our next candidate will be Rob Rennie.
Thank you. I'll start off by saying SB 10 is good. SB 9 is not working out so well. When you look up in our valley, what do you see? You see green hills and trees. You don't see houses. I can tell you already in Los Gatos, people are using SB 9 to divide 1 acre and 2.5 acre lots in Los Gatos Hills to build another $4 million house. SB 9 was meant to target missing middle housing, and it's not doing that. So I think there needs to be some changes. The houses, these are also high fire zones. One of the biggest effects I think we can have is for the government to use its bully pulpit to strongly encourage companies to allow employees to work remotely. This will take pressure off the housing. Some companies have already figured out that workers are more productive when they're working remotely, and they're letting them relocate. I have a friend that used to work at Google, moved to Oregon. I would also build densely in lower cost housing in areas around urban villages and transit centers, and maybe in the downtown areas. Time's up. Okay.
Thank you, Rob. Next, Gail Pellerin.
Hi, thanks. So we've got 2.5 million people that we need to house, and we're not going to be able to do that on single family lots. It's going to take a state investment to build the affordable housing we need. We need to ensure that every community has the housing it needs. And so housing bond is a possibility. Down payment assistance, modular housing has been successful as well to turn around housing quickly. We have single family residences with far too many people living in one household. We need to do the infill development near transit hubs, and we need to be smart about where we are requiring density and making sure that the services are there. And so we need to be looking at the environmental review is very important, and we need to make sure that that we're providing the places where there's water and support as well. And I also am supportive of rental subsidies as well to help eviction protections, and state local partnerships are needed as well. And there's been efforts at the state that I think there might be problematic, and I'm open to changes.
Thank you, Gail. And our last speaker on this question, Liz Lawler.
Thank you. SB 9 does not provide affordable housing. To ease California's affordable housing crisis, we must make affordable housing affordable and easy to build. It is more expensive to build affordable housing than market rate housing. To make it affordable, builders must get state and federal funding, but that funding comes with certain requirements attached that in turn drive the cost of housing up. Environmental policies, well-intended, have unfortunately driven up the cost of land. Policies like CEQA have bogged down permitting processes. I plan to find reasonable ways to ease these regulations to make it more affordable, more expedient, and easier to build while people are able to still achieve environmental goals. I fully support building deed restricted housing and down payment assistance, and there is an ask in the state legislature for $600 million to that effect, because home ownership is a great way to build generational wealth, and it's very important, like Joe said, to be able to give people that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question shifts a little bit, and we'll be beginning with you, Ms. Lawler. The question is, what improvements should California consider making to its legislature? So let me repeat that question. What improvements could California should consider making to its legislature? Ms. Lawler?
Yes, I'm here. Yes. Well, I think we need a lot more balance. And I know that there is talk nationwide about breaking districts into smaller pieces so that we are representing a smaller amount of people. That would provide a lot more representation for a lot more people. And I think that would really help our local communities the best. So I would be for something like that. We were also talking about a 2-year budget plan. I think that also will provide us the opportunity versus a 1-year budget plan to really plan thoughtfully and effectively and eliminate wasteful spending. Those are 2 things right off the bat that I can think would be an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Joe Thompson.
So yeah, there we go.
Muted, I think. Okay.
There we go. So yeah, I agree with almost everything that was said before me. But I think additionally, we need campaign finance reform. To me, it makes absolutely no sense how you have candidates who are raising, $4,900 donations when the federal limit is $2,900. It increases wealth inequality and makes it so, campaigns can be bought, when in reality, our democracy should be bought and paid for by the people who actually represent the district. Additionally, I think there are necessary requirements that need to be made for the California state constitution to allow for more representation. Specifically, we need to increase the representation of minority people in the district and allow for more access to people to get to the ballot box. There's a lot of problems in our government, and I'm the only candidate who's running against corruption and against those. So that's why I think we need more people running against corruption and corporate politicians.
Thank you. Next speaker, Rob Rennie.
Thank you. I agree with this idea that we need more balance. I'm not so sure that smaller districts are going to work. I'd have to think that one through. One of the challenges, certainly in the assembly, is how many people you have to try to build relationships with to try to get something done and through. I do agree that we want legislators to be spending more time in their district with their constituents, understanding what they need. A smaller district allows you to cover that more. But I think that's more of a discipline issue by the legislators. If you did them smaller, you'd then be back in Sacramento spending more time trying to build relationships with more people and get more people to agree to support your bill, or there will be more bills that you'll have to try to understand. I like the 2-year budget idea also because it gives more transparency, more thought to the process. And with a yearly budget, you spend a good piece of time working on that every year and not enough time working on other things or being back in your district talking to people.
Thank you. And our last speaker on this question, Gail Pellerin.
Thank you. So yes, I think that I'm also supportive of campaign finance reform, and I'd like to be looking more at that. I think that I've been working with local women's groups to get more women into elected office. And I think right now we're working with one called Women in Leadership for Diverse Representation, and also looking for the diversity as well. And, I think that, certainly the pandemic has taught us a lot about what we can do remotely. And I think that that's something that we could be looking at as well, to make sure that people can be actively involved in the legislative process and see how things are going, and members can still participate maybe from other parts of the state where they are. So I'd be interested in looking at that as well.
Thank you. Okay, our next question shifts again. And it's a long question. It's really got 2 parts to it, and we're going to be starting with you, Ms. Pellerin. So the question is, there has been a legal mandate to decrease California's prison population and a social justice movement to reform our criminal justice system. Various state legislation has been passed to begin to address these needs. Are you supportive of implementing diversionary programs to incarceration and/or sentence reductions in some criminal cases? Why or why not? What do you support in terms of this effort? Okay, Gail.
Okay, so I do support the diversion and sentence reductions for non-violent criminals. I think if we have violent criminals, we need to keep them in prison. And public safety, we all want to feel safe in our neighborhoods. We want to feel safe in our homes and at our businesses. And I would work closely with the local law enforcement officers to make sure that we have solutions that protect our communities and also provide for opportunities for people who do serve their sentence and provide a path for them upon release, that they can become integral members of our community, working and giving back.
Thank you. Liz Lawler.
Thank you. While we must have meaningful criminal justice reform, it should not come at the price of public safety. So Prop 47, for example, sold to us as the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, was anything but. It reclassified many property theft and drug possession crimes to misdemeanors, basically greenlighting larceny theft with no repercussions. While this was intended to break the cycle of incarceration, it did not break the cycle of crime. We have all seen or heard about brazen shoplifting, et cetera, or store owners and victims and police have no recourse. Prop 57 allows for the early parole of violent criminals and created a revolving door of habitual offenders. And they're non-violent, but they're actually quite violent because this includes sex offenders and pedophiles. The tragic shooting in Sacramento is a result of Prop 57. So what we really need to do is leave it up to the courts on a case-by-case basis when it comes to diversionary programs. And we need to work and repeal Prop 47 and to reclassify these non-violent crimes as violent to prevent habitual offenders from causing more harm. And we really need to look at prison rehabilitation programs.
Thank you. Joe Thompson.
So in regards to criminal justice reform, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed towards all these issues. A few things that I support is ending mandatory minimum sentencing laws in California. This would specifically allow for, communities that have been, targeted by these laws to be better held accountable. Specifically, these mandatory minimum laws, you would think that they're actually, good, but in reality, they're actually used by district attorneys in plea negotiations that actually get more people to plead guilty for a crime that they could have not even committed. Additionally, in regards to that, I also support ending solitary confinement in the states. We need to provide mental health resources to these populations and not incarcerate them in conditions that make their mental health worse. Additionally, I also support ending Program 1033, which allows for military arm transfers to local law enforcement. There's a lot of issues in the state that need to be addressed. Things like ending cash bail and stepping forward and addressing the actual root causes of crime. But when it comes down to it, we need to be starting these off with things that actually will be beneficial in the long term.
Thank you. And Rob Rennie.
Thank you. So I definitely would support diversion of the right kind of offenders. Again, it needs to be nonviolent. I agree with the idea of reclassifying sex offenders, pedophiles out of the nonviolent category. But I also realize that there's a lot of people that end up in the system. Example of somebody who has a mental health trauma from a poorer neighborhood, they can't go get help. Instead they turn to drugs, and then they get in trouble and they end up in the justice system and they're more mentally stressed. And then they, end up in a downward spiral where they might become homeless and then can't get a job and can't function in society. And a lot of these people just need help, right? Get them help instead of getting them into this endless circle. So these are definitely the types of people that we want to work on diverting. And then when criminals are leaving, we need to make sure that they're prepared to function in society when they come out with the right kind of training, make sure there's jobs available, make sure there's affordable places for them to live.
Thank you, Rob. And you're going to begin with the answering for this next question, which is, do you support Medicare for all? Why or why not? Rob?
That's a little bit like the single payer question. So I would say that I haven't studied that one as much. I know the single payer was an extremely expensive solution. Medicare for all may be a better way to go about it. I definitely support the idea of in California, we have 7% of the people that are not covered by healthcare. So I definitely support finding programs to expand or new programs to make sure that we cover all of those people. I do worry a little bit about creating a bureaucracy and the costs of it. So again, let's find the best solution to make sure that everybody is covered and has access to healthcare.
Thank you. Gail Pellerin.
I support universal healthcare, and I do believe there were flaws in AB 1400. So I do think we need to be looking at our current system and how our money is being spent, and find a way to basically provide healthcare for all Californians and ensure that we have patient security as well and safety. So we want to make it's a difficult problem for sure, and we've got our children that need the healthcare as well. And so, yeah, I'd be definitely interested in looking at moving forward with something, but it's going to take a lot of creative collaboration with a lot of various groups and organizations.
Thank you. Liz Lawler.
Thank you. Yes, with respect to single payer, California has not proven it can deliver services well. I mean, just look at the EDD fraud and the DMV. Everyone should have access to healthcare, and it should be affordable without a doubt. And the solution, right, if it's Medicare for all, what I'm concerned about is that funding for it sustainable? We tend to put these programs in place without thinking about how long we can sustain these programs. And so it really needs to be a thoughtful process. Right now, we have a public-private partnership going, and I think what we have right now works. It is a complicated issue, so we do need to work together to find a solution that also is sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe Thompson?
Yeah, I absolutely support Medicare for all, and unlike the other candidates, I'm someone who actually needs it and uses it. I've been on Medi-Cal for many years now, and when I was 16 years old, I was actually before then I was diagnosed with a genetic disease where all my teeth actually, all these ones are actually fake, and I was estimated over $20,000 out of pocket for dental costs. And not only do I think that we need Medicare for all, but we need, including dental and vision. And the way we pay for that is having a single payer system. The single payer system actually makes it cheaper and reduces the cost. So, all Californians are already paying for healthcare, at least most of them through their, current employer. And instead of paying their employer, the taxes would usually come out of their paycheck in addition to taxing, the ultra wealthy in California. It actually reduces the overall cost of having health insurance for all Californians. And it's something that only support and fight for, and I would have voted for AB 1400 because we need to make sure that every Californian has the right to healthcare like every other country.
Thank you, Joe. And you're going to be our first respondent on the next question, which is a very current one. If Roe versus Wade is overturned, do you support California passing legislation that codifies and protects a woman's right to choose her own medical care?
Absolutely. Not only do I fully support what is happening right now, with people rising up and fighting back against the attack on abortion rights, but I'm, an advocate for reproductive rights. I actually go to Planned Parenthood as a patient. I received healthcare through them. They're a great organization, not only for LGBTQ people like myself, but I, have been going there for over, I think, 5 years now for healthcare. And not only does Planned Parenthood, fight for abortion rights, but they also support Medicare for all and all these other great things. And when it comes down to it, I think that protecting abortion rights and protecting the right to choose is important. And not only do we need to elect politicians at the state level to do that, but we need to fight back against the, 3 Democrats who voted against codifying Roe recently, today, and elect people who actually care about the reproductive rights, and not only our local level, but also on the national level to really make sure that we're fighting for everyone.
Thank you. Next, Rob Rennie.
Yes, I would absolutely support that. I would also go further to support, the governor's plan to kind of make this a sanctuary state and provide funds available so that women can travel from other places if they need to, provide them, make sure they have housing and they can get the procedures here. So I absolutely support that, and I'll stop there. Whatever it needs, I'm in support. I'm in support of helping women from other states also.
Thank you. Gail Pellerin.
So yes, I 100% support California amending our state constitution to ensure that all individuals have reproductive freedom. We must enact laws to make California a sanctuary state for individuals to access safe reproductive services. Currently, 1 in 6 hospital beds are in hospitals that can restrict access. This is in California. So California needs to enact laws to make sure that access is protected. The California Future of Abortion Council has 13 bills this year to make sure that California continues to be a rock solid state where people can access safe and affordable abortions, whether they live here or not. And it's devastating to me to think that there are currently 26 states that are prepared to ban or restrict abortion if Roe is overturned. And 17% of those abortions are done already in California, and that number is going to increase with the Supreme Court overturns Roe. So we need to be prepared with funding, civil and criminal protections for patients and providers, and investments in workforce development.
Thank you. And Liz Lawler.
Thank you. This is definitely a hot button issue. I believe in the right for a woman to choose. I don't believe this should be a political issue. I think the overturning of Roe v. Wade will not have an impact on women in California because abortion is legal here. The impact that I do foresee was that, as we are seeing, is that I think our governor is already planning to spend taxpayer dollars subsidizing the travel for women to come here in the state. So really the question is, if it's overturned, I don't think it should be, because it creates just a whole host of just issues. And again, I believe in a woman's right to choose. If it is overturned, it returns it to the state, and it is completely legal here. I do think, though, that most of Americans, and I know this, just from reading the newspaper, that most Americans don't believe in late-term abortion. So we really need to think about what it is that we're doing. But again, I believe in the women's right to choose, and it potentially will be left up to the states.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And our next question will actually be starting with you again, Liz Lawler. And this question is, state legislation has been submitted to reform or modify the recall process. Do you think the recall process needs to be reformed? Why or why not? If needed, what aspects do you think need to be changed?
I don't think it needs to be changed. It was put in place for a reason. It takes a lot of signatures to put something like that on the ballot. So I think as it stands right now, it gives voters an opportunity to voice their displeasure with their leadership. And I think anything that takes away the right of voters, I would not be for. So I think we do not need reform of the recall process at this time. Thank you. Thank you. And next, Joe Thompson.
I do think that we need reform on this issue. With the recall election, it costs taxpayer dollars over $300 million. So I think that if I support wasteful spending, that's $300 of wasteful spending that could have been avoided very easily with voting for Newsom in this election now. So I do think if we're talking about wasteful spending, that should be included in there, because $300 million is a lot of affordable housing that we could build, and I do think it was entirely wasteful to hold that recall election. Additionally, looking at it, in California specifically, we do have a very fairly easy process to recall any elected official. So I do think that we need to make it a little bit harder. It's not something that'd be crazy harder, but in California, it's pretty lax. And I do think, the way we need to fix it is looking at the best way that's actually going to empower voters, instead of just making it where a upset minority that has gone completely far off the hinge can recall a pretty well-liked governor who, overwhelmingly won against the recall.
Thank you. Our next respondent, Rob Rennie.
Yeah, and so I agree with what Joe said about the governor, the waste of money. It's really not that long until you get to vote for the governor again. Didn't we just do a recall, and 9 months later they're voting for the governor again? So it's pretty ridiculous to spend that amount of money. But one thing we're forgetting is also the local elections. The school board members were bullied and threatened by, as you said, this very vocal minority with recalls. So if there needs to be a higher bar, particularly, look at this lower level. These are volunteers that are just trying to help out in their community, and to have to put up with this as a bullying and threatening technique I think is just going to scare good people out of these types of roles. So I would definitely find ways to make it a little harder hurdle for that. Again, keeping in mind, it's not that long until the next election.
Thank you. And Gail Pellerin.
Thank you. So I absolutely think we need to retain the recall process. It is the voters' right to have access to recall. I do think there's changes that can be made, and I do believe that the number of signatures required to trigger a recall are too low, and I think they need to be increased. And I also think there's an interesting proposal where perhaps right now there's a two-part question where people first vote yes or no whether to recall, and then they will vote on who they would want to replace that person. I think it might be interesting to see a question where you can actually vote for the person who is subject to the recall and say, yes, that's my affirmative. I want to retain that person in office. So that's just some of my ideas.
Thank you. Okay, and we're getting close to the end here. Our next question will begin with you, Gail, and it is, Bills are being submitted to the legislature and or being proposed by Governor Newsom to reduce or even potentially eliminate student loan debt. Do you support such proposals to reduce or eliminate student debt? Why or why not?
Thank you. I do support reducing student loan debt. I paid my way through college when I was a student, and it was extremely hard, and I did incur some debt that I had to pay off once I graduated. And I think, like I said earlier, education is the key to success for people. So I think we need to invest in education for everyone.
Thank you. Liz Lawler.
Thank you. Yes, education is very important for everyone. And we need to be able to find a way where students don't have to take out these crazy student loans. The problem I have with eliminating student loan debt is this, that there's a lot of taxpayers out there who have already paid for their own education or their child's education. And there are a lot of taxpayers out there who haven't gotten that education, yet their tax dollars are going to pay for someone else's education. So we really need to think about where and how we're going to do this. So I can't say one way or another whether I'm on board or not, but I think we need to be really, really careful about how we spend those taxpayer dollars and who it is that we're helping. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Thompson.
Can you repeat their question again as well?
Yes, let me go back to my bills are being submitted to the legislature and or being proposed by Governor Newsom to reduce or even possibly eliminate student loan debt. Do you support such proposals to reduce or eliminate student debt? Why or why not?
Okay, great. So yeah, I absolutely support this. Not only do we need to cancel all of student debt, we also need to make college and preschool free for all. And the main reason why to do that is to really uplift a generation. You know, we have people who can't afford access to preschool, and you have people who can't afford access to college. And, you know, not only do I think that, you know, we're investing in our future, but by having this, you know, paid for by taxpayers, we're showing that this taxpayer funded dollars is being spent on something that's actually useful. You know, our police budgets and other you know, wasteful spending is not being used in an adequate method. And the best way to kind of fix those historical wrongs is to invest in education by canceling student debts, you know, allowing for people like myself, very low income minority people to get into college. I myself am currently in student debt, just, you know, for being at college for about 6 months now. And I think that, you know, people should not have to put themselves in debt to get an education, especially when, you know, these people have already gone through high school, got amazing grades. Why do we have to go through student loan debt and continue fighting against that? Thank you.
Thank you. And Rob?
And so I would say support, but I'm also would be a little bit careful about who we're helping. I might change it so that, you know, disadvantaged people get a larger portion or all of their debt, and those that are more well off may need to be able to pay part of their education. So I might try to find some system, again, focus on who we're helping. But I would say, again, education is extremely important, especially for helping to lift up people from disadvantaged communities that may be able to get to college. So many of them don't even get that far to even get the debt. And we certainly don't want to scare them off because they're going to be saddled with this debt for all those years. And I definitely feel for the people that are not able to pay off the debt quickly. And so maybe we also look at what type of job they're taking. If it's a low paying social worker job where they're really giving back to the community, maybe this is somebody that really deserves to have, you know, more of their debt forgiven, for example. I do realize that doctors and you know, also end up with large debts and saddled for a while. So there's definitely a lot of work to do here.
Thank you. And that actually brings us to the end of the community questions, and we'll be moving on to your closing statement. And remember, you will have 90 seconds to respond to this question. What question do you wish you had been asked tonight, and why? And you'll have 90 seconds to respond to that. And the order is going to be, I will tell you, since I just tried to mix it up a little bit, we'll start with Liz Lawler, then Joe Thompson, Rob Rennie, and Gail Pellerin. So Liz, would you begin, please?
Yes, thank you. The question that we weren't asked today was about education. First and foremost, our children are our most precious resource, and we must invest in their education and mental well-being and provide them with the tools they need to be successful. This is why it is so important that we provide our children school choice. School choice comes in various forms. It gives parents control over their students' education. And mostly what school choice does is it provides equal opportunity for every student, and it serves as a catalyst for meaningful public school reform. Our public schools are failing our kids. They're 44th in the nation. And now with dropping enrollment, the most vulnerable students are going to get hurt even more. It is time. The time is ripe right now for us to provide this choice for our students. And then we can reform our public schools to not be system-centric, to be student-centric, and to include classes like trades, because every child is intelligent. Not every child is good at math. We have artists, we have writers, we have builders, we have mechanics. We need students to be able to do this and excel and feel good about themselves. And that, again, we need to build these trades, and we need to provide every student opportunities to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Joe Thompson.
So I think there are a lot of issues that weren't touched on in this, but one of the questions I think, I would love to hear is, why is a 19-year-old, running for this office? And I think that it's pretty clear, I'm 37 years younger than my youngest other opponent. And I don't discount that. But, one of the things is, I am young. And this generation that I'm a part of is very politically active. We've been inspired by the Bernie Sanders movement, and we've been, watching not only the crisis in Ukraine, but now having Joe Biden as president. There's a lot of things that we are, wanting to organize around, especially now with workplaces. And I think that a lot of people that I talk to are very inspired when I tell them I'm running. And that's one of the reasons that keeps me in this race. I haven't been able to fundraise a lot of money. I haven't been able to talk to as many voters as I wanted to. But when it comes down to it, and the one thing I hope this, will help this campaign is being able to tell people that, although we didn't win, here's what we're fighting for. And, I'm fighting for Medicare for all. I'm fighting for a Green New Deal. I'm fighting to give, everyone the right to choose in our democracy, and really believe that they're voting for someone who really cares for them. And, in this community that I've, love living here now, I'm, never leaving Santa Cruz. It's because I want to fight for the people who don't feel like their voices are being heard, the people who feel like there are, corrupt politicians and the establishment is trying to get crush dissenting voices, but we can unite against that, and workers need to rise up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Rob Rennie.
I also agree. There's a number of questions that I wish we'd asked. I would have liked to talk about education, but I'm going to have to go with, what do we think we should do for climate change? It's definitely my specialty, being a founding board member of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And I've also worked in the solar industry, and on Silicon Valley Clean Energy, I've been on our risk oversight committee, which means I have intimate knowledge of what are the risks and what are we buying to try to green the grid. So I would certainly be working to move our grid to be, more off of fossil fuels while keeping it resilient and reliable. My work on the Air District Board and on Silicon Valley Clean Energy, we're also getting, putting grants towards trying to get more building electrification done, model reach codes from Silicon Valley Clean Energy to cities to pass for building electrification, grants to try to move us towards more EV chargers, particularly in multi-unit dwellings where people, you're discouraged from buying an EV because it's harder to charge. So focusing these kinds of things I would focus on. More things for carbon sequestration. When I was thinking about county supervisor, I was looking at, okay, how do we change our general plan in the county to encourage more farming that would sequester carbon? And the state has this 30-30 where we save 30% of the land to help sequester carbon. I would be pushing those kinds of things forward. More affordable housing close to jobs so that there's less vehicle miles traveled. And of course, improving transit. And I guess my time's up.
Thank you, Rob. And our last candidate tonight to speak will be Gail Pellerin.
Thank you. So I'd like to be asked about voting rights. And right now, voting rights are under attack in our country. And we've got 450 bills that have been introduced across the nation to restrict access to voting. And California has really been a model of making sure that barriers are removed and people have access to voting. And I've been an integral part of that. So things that we've done are more days, more ways to vote through providing vote centers. And we've been working on having the ballot drop boxes around so people can easily return their vote by mail ballot. And of course, we have now all mail balloting here in California. And then of course, we've got the, on-campus registration as well, making sure that youth are engaged in voting. I've done a lot of work with civic education, and I think we need to have more in the way of educating students about the importance of being engaged and being a good citizen, and to be casting their vote on every election and not just the presidential one, because it is so vital and important for everybody to participate. And those barriers have to be removed. We need to have language access. We need to have access for persons with disabilities. We need to have remote accessible vote by mail voting for people who cannot show up in person. And I think California can really be a role model for the rest of the nation in ensuring that people's voting rights are protected and people have a way to vote. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for all the work you do in the area of voter education and advocacy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I do want to thank you again, candidates. I want to thank you, first of all, for running for office. That's what we need in this democracy, is people who are committed to the process and to the values of our country and are willing to step up and run for public office. So I wish you well, all of you in your campaign, and I'd like to thank you again for attending our candidate forum tonight. And this technically ends our forum, but I do want to remind our audience again, if we could go back to that slide about the primary that is coming up on June 7th. And to remind all of you again to vote. You should be getting your ballot this week. If you don't, call the Santa Clara County Registrar of Office and track down what has happened to your ballot. And you will be able to get those answers. I do want to remind our audience also that we have hosted candidate forums for the sheriff, the district attorney, the assessor, and tonight's candidate forum for Assembly 28. And Cupertino Sunnyvale did Assembly District 26. All of those forums have been recorded and they have been posted onto league websites, any one of the leagues that you can go onto, and you can get a connection onto those recordings. And I encourage all of our audience members to do that. And lastly, I do want to encourage all voters, including our candidates, if you haven't done it yet, is to participate in Voters Edge, to make sure that you have your information loaded there. We strongly recommend all of our members and other concerned citizens to go on to Voters Edge, where you can type in your own address and your zip code, and you get a copy of your personal ballot. So you can know beforehand, look it over, know who you want to vote for, know what you want to vote on, and be a knowledgeable voter. Again, you get nonpartisan information on the candidates, on the measures, and campaign financing. It's a wonderful site. The league works in cooperation with another organization called MapLight to produce this, and we're very proud of the information that it does provide to voters. And the last slide here is various nonpartisan election information. Voters Edge again, League of Women Voters of California, Easy Voter Guide, Legislative Land Analyst Office. I always particularly like this one here, California Votes. So all of these sites are available for voters to check out information on. And my last message for the evening is, remember, please vote on or before June 7th. Democracy is not a spectator sport. We welcome you to join us. And this forum tonight has been jointly sponsored by all 5 leagues in Santa Clara County. And again, for those audience members who are interested in listening to a short presentation on Measure A, please stay online for a few minutes and we'll be doing that. And for those of you who are choosing to leave at this point, thank you for attending. And again, thank you to our candidates and good luck in your campaign. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.